call the public hearing back to order. And so if we can have order in the room, please. And we will begin with the presentations from individuals or groups wishing to present. I would like to remind you that as it is your turn to speak, if you would please state your name, what your address is, where you live in relationship to the proposal, and whether you have previously submitted a written submission. And just for your information, I have in front of me whether you have submitted a written submission previously or not. So, firstly, we're going to start with the individuals who are wanting to speak in favor of the proposal. Those individuals, I'm going to call the first two. There's three of them in total. I'm going to ask the first two if they would come to the front. The one who's speaking, if you would stand at the microphone. The one who's going to speak second, if you want to just take a chair in the front row, that's fine. So the first two speaking are Dan Zembel and Doug Northcott. So if the two of you would please come to the front of the room so we can facilitate this process as quickly as possible. It doesn't matter which microphone you choose, but Dan, please, you would be the first one to speak, so you have your 5 minutes, and away you go.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Carolyn, these are in favor, first ones, and so we have just individuals. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you. My name. Okay. Thank you. My name is Dan Zembel. Address is 204 Stettler. And I live near Stettler, just in the rural area outside of it. I think it's important to provide some background, some of my background. I've been a recycler for 30 plus years. I'm past president of the Recycling Council of Alberta. I was former director of the Alberta Recycling Management Authority, which deals with paint, tires, and electronics. And I'm currently and actively recycling agricultural plastics in Bashaw. I'm also actively recycling construction waste in Alberta at various locations. My company, Alberta Waste and Recycling, also manages 6 waste and recycling transfer sites and runs recycling trailers to another 6 rural communities in central Alberta. I am supportive of this application moving forward in that it provides the opportunity to recycle more of these and potentially other resources. I am a firm and passionate believer in supporting environmentally sustainable waste and recycling solutions, and I have worked with many rural and municipal communities in helping them manage their waste and recycling and achieving their environmental goals, including Rocky View County, Red Deer, Lethbridge, Calgary, Airdrie, and other communities. A project in this area will capture more agricultural plastics and will support increased recycling opportunities. A well-run facility with proper mitigation techniques would not concern me, and I have been involved in waste and recycling developments for a number of years, including consulting with the city of Lethbridge when they developed their waste and recycling site. I am supportive of the proposed rezoning in that it allows Waste Connections the opportunity to conduct the rather extensive additional assessments, studies, and to ensure that all municipal and provincial and federal requirements of the facilities can be met. And that's, any questions?
The opportunity here this morning is just to present your side of the argument. We're not really here to solicit or ask a bunch of questions. So thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and very much appreciate your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, the opportunity here is for you to express your opinion and concerns to council, and it's not a back and forth question answer. Your opportunity is to lay out your concerns so they're on the record and so that we can address them as we move forward in the decision-making process. So I'm going to ask Mr. Northcott, Doug, if you'd come forward, and Brenda Britsky, who's also speaking in favor, if you would come forward and be prepared to make your presentation. So Mr. Northcott, whenever you're ready.
Okay, good afternoon, Council. My name is Doug Northcott, and I'll be speaking today on behalf of my wife Maggie, and also for Tracy and Sylvia Schmidt. We are two of the landowners who have submitted the application. I'm here today to express my support for the rezoning. We are longtime residents and ratepayers of Kneehill County and feel we should be given the opportunity to explore all avenues when marketing our land in Kneehill County. I was in attendance at both municipal development workshops in Acme where economic development and growth was a topic discussed. Ratepayers were asked how the county should support as well as attract new industry to the county. It was recognized that 7% of the county revenue was farm residential, 7% was farmland, and 86% was non-residential, indicating how important industry is to this county. This question was asked and put to vote. Should the county try to attract business by means of tax breaks, services, transportation, etc.? The result with Acme and Trocher meetings combined were 137 total votes. 103 of those votes were suggested that the county help new business in some way or another. By approving this application, it would appear that the county was listening to the valuable information that was given by the ratepayers. I asked that the county help this new industry by approving the application, as there is no financial cost by simply rezoning the land. Plus, approval would mean that the start of the $100,000 community contributions that would help local organizations such as 4-H, hockey, Ringette, and the new Acme School. Under the topic of transportation and utilities, discussion included the limited space in our current landfill and the high cost and time commitment to build a new one. The concerns of recycling and compost were also included in those discussions. In the last year and a half, I have witnessed firsthand what Waste Connections has done and what the county is facing financially in order to find suitable land and build a new site. The costs would be astronomical. Approving the application and allowing Waste Connections to take the next step is just good business. If the county were to work with Waste Connections, there is a possibility to turn an unknown multi-million-dollar expense into a long-term revenue source. As for any industry, it brings its concerns. This area already has industry that has odors, noise, dust, and increased seasonal traffic. I realize that water runoff is a concern, but let's consider that Acme, Carbon, and Kneehill County garbage goes to the Drumheller landfill, which is located only 700 meters from the Red Deer River. This province regulates this, and the people at Waste Connections know how to manage this. Highway 21 already has the trucks. Acceleration and deceleration lanes, plus paving Township Road 290 as a designated route would eliminate dust, and the only residence on that route is one that I own. Managing waste and recycling is not glamorous, but is essential. When looking at the larger picture, the property has proximity to a major highway, and Waste Connections will have to prove to the Alberta government that this property meets the geological requirements, and it already has industry with noise, dust, and odors, and increased traffic. This location checks all the boxes. Approval to this zoning does not mean that the project gets approved. It just means Waste Connections can be allowed to do the further work to assure all provincial requirements can be met. Waste Connections is more than a landfill. It is a proven integrated waste management system and with a proven reputation and is essential for the Kneehill County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Northcott. Our next person who wishes to speak in favor is Brenda Britsky. So Ms. Britsky, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thanks. Can you hear me properly? Good morning. My name is Brenda Britsky. I have recently moved back to Three Hills after being away for 23 years. I grew up here, and I am proud to be part of a well-known farming family for generations. I have not submitted written consent or written submission prior, pardon me. The reason we're here today is to weigh in on the rezoning of land. Remember, it is not a go-ahead for a dump. It is rezoning of land. This is a big change, I agree, but I do feel it's a necessary one. Our town, our community, and our county must embrace change to thrive. Change isn't easy, but with it brings new opportunities, new jobs, and community benefits. I would encourage each and every one of us to research, ask, read, and talk about this with an open mind. Remember, this is the first step in many. The rezoning is simply the beginning of lengthy discussions and decisions. My understanding is the WCC will tailor their community benefits to us. So be ready when you're asked what that means to you. Funding for the arts, hosting an annual hockey tournament, a community field house. We have options, and that is necessary for the economic growth of our community. Council, I will ask you today to consider this when making your zoning decision. I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Ms. Britsky. Appreciate your comments this morning, and we are now at the point where we are going to move into those wishing to make a presentation to council and this public hearing in opposition of bylaw 1895 and 1896 amendments. And the first individual who has asked to speak is speaking on behalf, according to my speakers list, of a group, and that individual is Mr. Robert Homersham. So if you would come forward to the mic, you have 10 minutes according to my understanding for a group presentation. And the second person to make presentation will be Lyle Miller, and Lyle, if you would come forward at this time as well, and just grab a seat at the front. So,
I have a presentation, so I'll do that from there.
you have a presentation, okay? Please, again, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and then go ahead with your presentation, please. Mr. Homersham, while you're getting ready, do you mind if we allow Mr. Miller to make his presentation, and then that way you have time to get prepared? So, Ms. Van, can we go to 5 minutes, please? And Mr. Miller, welcome, and if you would please go ahead.
Good morning, my name is Lyle Miller. I'm from the Acme-Carbon area. I'm immediately 1 mile, half a mile north of the proposed facility, and I have submitted letters prior. My wife Amanda and I and our 3 kids are third-generation farmers and are among some of the closest residents to this proposed landfill. Although we have many personal reasons to oppose, the decision isn't about us. It's about all of us. First off, I would like to thank WCC and Council for bringing projects forward. It's a great opportunity for Council to see generations of constituents come together that are passionate about the decision upon you. The success of getting this many voters from greater than a 1 mile notification on such a beautiful farming day is a real accomplishment. First and foremost, a landfill is not the type of business that Kneehill County needs. It's not the type of business that attracts other business development. Instead, how much desirable income will it drive away? Case in point, we run a livestock operation that has inventory and assets near 100 mil, employs 35 plus people directly, conducts agriculture business with other farmers and businesses, all of which are at risk if we see groundwater contamination, avian flu, or foot and mouth outbreaks as a result of the proximity to a landfill. And all the above would be devastating to all other livestock operators in the county. In Kneehill County's strategic plan, under quality of life, it says, promote and sustain Nehill County's unique rural lifestyle, and attract new citizens and retain existing citizens. What part of taking other people's garbage supports these statements? The request for decision document didn't suggest this pillar being met. However, at WCC's open house, they made a feeble attempt to suggest they solve this. Lastly, on the increase of potential revenues, the only increase will come from the garbage itself. Garbage trucks won't be stopping on the local routes to conduct business, and landfills have limited employment needs. Secondly, is Waste Connections someone I would want to have in my community? WCC states as one of their main core values as integrity. How much integrity do they have when they lied to those that they want to call their neighbors, as well as our MLA, about who was in favor of the landfill in an attempt to pit the neighborhood against each other? Also, as one of the closest neighbors to the proposed dump, I had to seek them out to learn about the operation. I would have expected that to be their job, not mine. They said we were waiting for an invite. I think they just want to get through the process with as much limited communication as possible. With all the landfills they operate, they said they have no positive reference letters from neighbors. And fines from future infractions would be petty cash to their multi-billion-dollar valuation. The look they are trying to represent and the comments they have made today will be the best version of themselves, including portrayals of operation, products to take, hours of operation, number of loads, all of which is subject to change with private contracts that are money and volume based. Some concerns other than the 34 I've already brought forward: there's only two types of liners, ones that are leaking and ones that are about to leak. And monitoring the spread is the only way
Remind you to be respectful, please. And
monitoring the spread is the only way landfills deal with contamination. There is no cleanup attempt. 2.3 million pounds of garbage per day is equivalent to 24 Super Bs of grain and 35 loads of cattle, and a pile of garbage 60 meters high is equivalent to 7 hopper bins stacked on top of each other, or twice the height of the Three Hills water tower. Lastly, as our legal counsel will state, if WCC meets all requirements under the proposed designation of DC 7 and 8, and when they get their next level approvals, they will have a right to the development permit, and effectively no further involvement with public or council will be required. There will be no right to appeal. If the council denied WCC the development permit, they would face a lawsuit. You will lose the ability to infringe rules of operation or penalties for non-compliance at the DP stage, and we will have no leverage on royalties. It will be risk-free moving forward for WCC. In closing, we don't own the land. We just borrow it from future generations, and they won't thank us for a landfill. So please don't bury all these legitimate concerns in the bottom of a dump to rot and leach away. This is a forever decision, and one the most impactful that Nehill County has and will ever make about the health of its residents, drinking water, livestock, crops, quality and life of the community, so please treat it accordingly. Council has a fiduciary duty to represent we the people, your ratepayers, who trust you and who have taken the time to present to you today and who signed 1,300 pages of opposition. Remember this duty and give us a reason to continue
Thank
to
you,
trust
Mr. Miller. Your time's up. I'm sorry. So we thank you again, remind you in the room. We know you're supportive, and we want you to be respectful of process and council. So Mr. Homersham, you're next presenter. You have 10 minutes. I'm going to ask Miley Becker to please come to the front of the room and take a seat so that you're ready when the time comes. So, Mr. Homersham, please come forward and make your presentation.
Thank you, Reed and councilors. My name is Bob Homersham. I'm a commercial real estate lawyer, practice in Calgary and the surrounding area. My focus is on land use planning and development, so I am well familiar with these types of public hearings. I've been retained by two individuals who were affected by this proposed landfill, this redesignation, Joe Becker and Scott Metzger. And I do have a presentation which is on the screen, and I will move to the first, past the introductory slide here. So you're going to hear, and you have heard from many concerned citizens in opposition to this proposed redesignation. You've heard it through a significant number of letters written in, individual conversations, phone calls. They can tell that story in their opposition to that much better than I can. I'm here to focus on why I think Waste Connections is pursuing this path of a direct control district, or two direct control districts, and what the implications of that are if they are to be successful. So hence the question at the start of the presentation, why is Waste Connections applying to redesignate the proposed site to direct control districts? This is their answer, which I have copied from the letter of intent, which would have been included in their application. To facilitate the integrated waste management facility, DC districts are used to regulate specific developments that do not fit into existing standard land use districts. An IWMF is an example of such unique use. Waste management facility is listed as a discretionary use in some of Needham County's land use districts, agriculture district being one of them. However, there are other uses listed in these districts that do not align with the intent of a waste management facility. The DC districts were developed to guide the uses specific to the IWMF. The DC districts provide some flexibility over the duration of the project. The DC bylaws also balance the interests of local landowners, the community, and WCC by ensuring that the IWMF meets specific municipal and provincial standards while considering broader public interests. So now I want to do a closer examination of the rationale for direct control districts. And the two initial ones, the top ones, are relatively benign. Of course, their DC districts would facilitate the use that they're proposing. DC districts are to be used to regulate developments that don't fit into existing land use districts. But an IWMF, a waste management facility, isn't such an example of a unique use. It is similar, very similar to what's described in your land use bylaw already as a waste management facility major. Both definitions accommodate non-hazardous Class 2 landfills. Next point, waste management facility is listed as a discretionary use. However, there are other listed uses in these districts that do not align with the intent of a waste management facility. Waste management facility major is listed, as I said, as a discretionary use under the agriculture district, the land use district that currently applies to most of the subject site. This district, agriculture, lists 15 permitted uses and 56 discretionary uses, not all of which are compatible, or to use WCC's language, align with the intent of a waste management facility. For example, housing, a man-made water feature, or a corn maze are allowed uses under the agriculture district, and those do not align with the intent of a waste management facility, but that's irrelevant. Waste Connections would own and control the entire site. If it were to apply and be approved for a DP for a waste management facility major under the current district, it would not then apply for any of the other allowed incompatible uses. That would be absurd. Waste Connections intends to develop a landfill on the site, not a landfill and a housing development and a corn maze. The DC districts were developed to guide the uses specific to their IWMF. It's not necessary. Waste management facility major, a defined use under your land use bylaw, a discretionary use under agriculture, has the development standards, and council as the development authority has the discretion, because it's a discretionary use, to apply those standards to consider and approve or deny a development permit for a waste management facility major. Next point, and I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to skip over the one that talks about duration of the project. You have control when you're considering a development permit to make it temporary or perpetual. The DC bylaw balances the interests. I just skipped ahead there, my apologies. The DC bylaws balance the interests of local landowners, the community, and WCC by ensuring that the IWMF, pardon me, let's get back to it. That the IWMF meets specific municipal and provincial standards while considering broader public interests. As I said, an approved DP under the current land use for a discretionary use waste management facility major would ensure similar compliance with municipal development standards. The additional conditions of approval that are listed in the DC bylaws before you that pertain to provincial standards are irrelevant. You do not have jurisdiction over those. It's nice that they're listed, but they're not anything that you as a development authority can enforce. So if direct control districts are not necessary for WCC's proposed major landfill, and only an approved development permit for the discretionary use of waste management facility major would be required, why is it applying for these land use designations when it could go straight to a DP application? The answer: a DP application for a major landfill development would require a significant outlay of resources, and because waste management facility is a discretionary use, the DP approval would be subject to the development authority's broad planning discretion. That is, WCC's DP application, put together at significant time and expense, could meet all the applicable development standards in the bylaw and still be refused by the development authority, which is yourselves, if it were a discretionary use, could be refused based on a development authority's broader and other planning criteria when dealing with the discretionary use application. The proposed DC bylaws, however, list the integrated waste management facility as a permitted use. This would eliminate this planning discretion risk and eliminate public input beyond this public hearing. When dealing with a permitted use, if Waste Connections meets the development standards and the other and submits a full development permit application, the development authority, yourselves, have no right but to approve that. They have a development permit as of right. There is no discretion. And because council is making that decision as the development authority, there's also no right of appeal from your decision on the development permit. So if Waste Connections, and I'm running out of time here, were to get these land use redesignations, these direct control district land use redesignations, as I said, they've eliminated the planning risk. They still have to go through the provincial processes as they described, but with a DC bylaw and a permitted use for their major use, a landfill, they simply have to meet the terms of the district, which they helped draft. It's not that the county drafted them and handed them to Waste Connections. Their planning consultants drafted them. So all they'd have to do is meet those.
I'm sorry, Mr. Homersham, your time has expired. Thank you very much for your presentation and taking the time to be here today. The next speaker is Ms. Molly Becker, and following her will be John Moore. So John, if you could come to the front and be ready when the time comes. So welcome, Miley. Thank you for being here today. Very much appreciated.
Hi, I'm Miley Becker, and I live in the Granger area. As a 15-year-old farm girl, I never thought that such things would arise that would affect my friends, family, and neighbors to such extremes. Not only does this affect my daily life, but it also affects my future. My future being not only my future health, but also my future in agriculture. As someone that is proud to be involved in agriculture, it is hard to believe that this landfill can do so much damage. Being on a farm that raises cattle, there are plenty of ways that this will affect them. The crops that my family works hard to produce will become destroyed from seagulls. Seagulls will eat crops that are necessary not only to feed our cows, but also to sell for income for our family. This will reduce the amount of product produced, therefore there is a risk of cutback on our cattle herd that has been built from generation to generation. Not only will our cows be getting harmed, but the people's cows around us will also be affected. The traffic that will be so heavy on our roads will create dust, making our cows sick, which raises more costs for my family. With not having any grain to sell after harvest and having to treat our cattle, this is a very easy way for people to become uninterested in being a part of the agriculture industry. As someone that has looked forward to taking up the farm in the future and raising a family, it is absolutely heartbreaking that these are the conditions that I will be raising livestock, crops, and most importantly, a family. Not only is this landfill wrecking people's daily lives, but it's also ruining the future in agriculture. So before you decide to make your final decision, just think about all the people's lives you are risking and the downfall of the agriculture industry in such a strongly passionate community of people in the Kneehill County. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Very much appreciate you. The next speaker on our list is Mr. John Moore, and following him is Presley Becker. So Presley, if you could come forward to the front. And Mr. Moore, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead with your presentation.
My name is John Moore, and my family and I farmland in 3.5 miles directly west of the station, 290. We farm 3.5 miles west of the proposed landfill site. I feel the proposed landfill site will affect us who live in the Kneehill County on a personal level. I choose to live on my farm, as most farmers do in Kneehill. I choose to live on my farm for the very reasons I do not often visit Banff or hiking trails west of Calgary, or Calgary itself, because I very much value the peace and quiet of rural life. The current state of the quality of life in Kneehill County should not be taken for granted. Vehicle traffic is relatively low, it is generally quiet enough to hear nature, and it's clean. On a personal level, I feel that our families and my neighbors' quality of life will be substantially compromised with a large dump in the area. The dramatic increase in traffic and dust and smell and constant backup alarms and flying debris will cover the landscape. This week has proven that it would be windy enough to send garbage flying across the fields, and it would be disastrous. It will pollute the surface and the groundwater and harm wildlife immensely. Landfills are a ticking time bomb. Other than monitoring groundwater, what can you do to correct contaminated groundwater? From a business perspective, I feel the county had better be very wary of getting into the size of Waste Connections. I realize Waste Connections will have an answer to all of our concerns brought forward today. But from their own information, from their website, this is going to be one of over 100 landfills they own in Canada. They have polished their application process. They know how to schmooze the communities with promises of community investment, cash for local projects, and promise big income to the county coffers. But keep in mind, this is a private for-profit landfill, and they will be looking after Waste Connections' bottom line long before Kneehill County financial interests. Once the incentive to romance residents is passed, their community support will wane. The county will have no control if Waste Connections decides to dramatically increase the volume of garbage that they want to parade the dump to increase profits. And judging by the way Calgary and area is rapidly growing, Waste Connections will have the opportunity to increase that volume substantially, which is probably why they're so interested in being so close to Calgary's proximity. And money doesn't buy lost chances. Lost farmland is lost farmland, and a huge pile of rotting, stinking garbage cannot be undone with a check. We have a chance to say no now, and we have to. Kneehill County is a wealthy county. From what I hear, we have nearly $70 million in reserve and annual tax surplus, even after paying for handling our current garbage requirements. Kneehill County does not desperately need the income, especially from not this type of business. Future business opportunities will arise that will be a better fit for the agriculture and tourist mix we have now. I feel the possibility of future ag tourism compatible business may not look to Needle County if we have given the green light to this massive dump. In closing, I would like to bring up one last thought. In November of 2023, Needle County hosted 3 dinner meetings to listen to ratepayers' input regarding many county concerns. Landfills, or specifically the need for a new landfill, was not on the agenda. I felt that would have been a good opportunity to include ratepayers in such an important decision. This week I spoke to many of the Needle councillors to voice my disapproval of the dump, and I feel I had productive conversations. Several of the councillors mentioned trying to work with waste-to-energy initiatives in the past to head off this very issue, but they all voiced their annoyance with the project because it was too expensive and it was not funded properly by the provincial and federal governments as thought. I asked my councillors today not to approve this change in bylaw application by Waste Connections and to give the county residents and the councillors together the time to explore other options. This process seems to me to be very rushed, and I assume by design. We have written letters to the county to oppose the dump. We can write letters to the media and to provincial and federal governments as well to encourage funding garbage incinerators like the ones used in Sweden and Switzerland since the early 1960s. They produce energy from waste. It cannot be recycled to lessen or eliminate the need for landfills. This is not in my backyard plea, but a plea to do better by choosing better for a better option for our future generations. Vote no to the land use bylaw, protect our farmland and community. I learned of a waste to energy project recently in Innisfail. I'm sure you're aware of it. The local company, I think it's pronounced Varme, website claims its status is in development and it's slated to begin operate or building in 2028. There are other options on our horizon. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I have a certain amount of discretionary control on what happens in the meeting, and I'm just going to remind people that if you have already submitted in a letter some of the information that you want to publicly pronounce today, I have some discretion, but I also recognize we have a whole mass of people who want to speak. So please be respectful of the people behind you, and if you've already submitted it in writing, please do not bring it forward at this moment in time. So the next individual on the speakers list is Presley Becker. Welcome, Ms. Becker. Really appreciate you being here today and value your input. Trust me when I say that, we do value what you have to say. Following you is Megan Metzger. So Presley, whenever you're ready, you go ahead.
Hi, I'm Presley Becker and I live in the Granger area. As a young female who had many dreams of taking over the family farm that has been passed down through generations, it felt like those dreams have been torn away from me all because of a landfill. Not only will the landfill create a terrible smell, but with the smell comes rodents and seagulls. The smell from the landfill will fill the air with toxins that will not only affect animals and crops, but humans as well. Why would council even consider passing something that would so drastically affect the lives of fellow humans? Landfills can have severe health effects on humans, such as asthma and cancer. As I am very young, I want to be able to go outside and play. But with this landfill, I will have concerns of my health with greater risks of possibly getting cancer and other respiratory issues. This is also a concern for my livestock and that of my neighbors. Seagulls and rats will be all around you. Rats are not only disgusting, but they carry many diseases such as salmonella and tularemia. For those of you who don't know what tularemia is, it's a disease spread from animals to humans that can affect your lungs, eyes, throat, and intestines. Rats can also have effect on livestock by leaving feces and urine in water resources and feed. These big rodents also carry vermin that not only affect livestock but also crops, as vermin is a disease that is from fleas or parasites found on rats. Seagulls are pests and are also known for eating crops. These crops not only feed our livestock, but they also support putting food on the table for people throughout the world. With the rising levels in our population, why would we want to add more to the food shortages we are already experiencing? As a citizen of Needle County and a future farmer, I am requesting that you should strongly consider opposing bylaws 1895, and 1896 and consider my future and the future of other young farmers.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. So the next speaker on our list is Megan Metzger, and she'll be followed by Kelly Becker. So Kelly, if you would come forward, please, that would be greatly appreciated. So Ms. Metzger, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Megan Metzger. I live just west on Township 292 from the opposed landfill, and I own a campground within 2 miles north of the proposed landfill. We have a recreational place for people to come and fish and camp and enjoy the nature of outside. We stock our fishing pond with trout that people like to come and fish. Very concerned about the smell that will be traveling within the 2 miles north. We are concerned about the seagulls as well with the avian flu and the fact that they are invasive birds that will come and eat our livestock, our fish. They can bring the avian flu as well, like I said, to we have all these lovely birds there. That is a worry as well, and they are, like I said, invasive. And at a campground, they're going to come in and they're going to bug the campers when they're trying to barbecue or whatever. The other thing, I've actually already had some. It's affecting my business already because I've had some people write me concerns. Some of my seasonals have written concerns already, saying that if this landfill is to come, that they will probably pull out of the campground because they are worried about the smell and about the seagulls with all of that. And then, of course, within 3 miles of the landfill, there can be the toxins, and that is another very large concern for us. Sorry, just looking for my spot. Yes, so that is my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Metzger. So the next presenter is Kelly Becker, and following her would be Amy Tate. So Amy, if you would come to the front, please, and just take a seat. And at this point in time, Kelly, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Becker. I live on Range Road 24-4 at Granger, approximately 3 miles from the proposed site. As I stand here in front of you today with my fellow community members, you're about to make one of the biggest decisions you will ever make in your term with council. What you decide after today will impact not only yourselves and the county, but also your family, friends, neighbors, and the future of agriculture in our county and communities. My father-in-law, Alan Becker, had a passion for agriculture, and most importantly, his family and their future in the agricultural industry in Neho County. He poured his heart and soul into our family farm and the land and cattle he was so proud of in hopes of handing it on to future generations. And like him, so did the generations in our family before and after him. Now we gather here wondering if the possibility of that is about to be taken from us. You talk about the importance of agriculture and the future of agriculture in our county. At your recent ratepayer meetings, surveys done show the importance of that to all of us as well. And here you are proposing to rezone prime agricultural land into direct control for a future landfill. My family lives in farms within 1 to 3 miles of the proposed mill. Let's just call it what it is. My children, as 4th generation farmers, plan to carry on our family farm and also raise their families here. What future do they have when the quality of life and that of their children is jeopardized by toxins and unknown chemicals in the air, creating higher risk for respiratory illnesses and cancer? The smells emitted from it ruining community barbecues and activities. Environmentally destroying their drinking water by runoff and leachates into Neho Creek and eventually Red Deer River, which is the county's main source of drinking water. This will not only affect residents local to the proposed site, but the whole county and surrounding towns as well, littering miles and miles of fields and yards with debris, not to mention plugging up equipment and killing livestock that ingest it. There is also a huge concern for the diseases that will be brought in with pests such as seagulls. The latest strain of avian bird flu not only puts poultry farmers at risk, but it is also now being detected in cattle. This is a huge risk and concern, not only for my cattle herd, but others around us as well. I feel that this is something that has been hastily pushed through with little to no research done on the disadvantages and risks of rezoning this section of agricultural land. The harsh effects to not only residents, but also the environment, crops, and livestock in our area. In closing, I hope when you make your final decision, you look a lot farther than the dollars and cents on the piece of paper in front of you and consider what the opposition is asking. I feel that by the number of letters and people here today, it should be very obvious what your decision should be. I, however, would like to thank the Needham County Council and Waste Connections of Canada for one thing. It is apparent that the goal was to divide our community into two, but you have done just the opposite, and you have in fact brought many of us closer together with one goal in mind, and that is to stop the rezoning bylaws 1895 and 1896.
The next presenter is Amy Tates, and following her is Karen Mickelson. So Karen, if you would come forward also, please. And Amy, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Tates, and our family is located at Northwest 2328-24, which is 3 kilometers south of the proposed land seeking bylaw amendment. So 3 kilometers may not be considered inside the required notification area, but I can guarantee you it is not outside of the affected area. As you will hear today and read in many of the letters presented, there will be smell of debris, increased road traffic, dust, pests, and when you see the posts, read the details, and hear of these issues, we can stand to face. These are the outcomes that will directly be impacting our neighbors and our family. Our family today that is standing here, a 6th-generation farm, and I have no reason to think that it should not remain so. As this moves to vote, the county's decision could ultimately be deciding our quality of life for our children and our grandchildren for years to come. Once the decision is made, there is no going back. It is made for our futures. A few words directly from the county's website that I would like you to keep in mind today is ultimately, municipal development plans should reflect the people who live and work in the community. By providing input and engaging in the planning process, residents can help shape their communities in a way that is inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable for generations to come. A strategic plan that encourages a community that celebrates rural roots and embraces agricultural lifestyle. Given the short time frame county residents were provided to gather information from studies, research, and legal information, I believe that many people in the room today have learned more about waste facilities than we ever thought we would need to. What it has done is brought our small community closer together and stated a strong opposition to the applicant. To introduce some new information from a personal perspective, when I met Waste WCC representatives, I asked the question why 5 out of the 8 residents on Range Road 24-2, so within the mentioned 3 kilometers, were not approached to notify us of the application or discuss the project. The response I received was because we didn't have to. True, according to the bylaw, I believe 1 mile adjacent landowners are those required to be notified. The response was accurate. What they said was true. What I heard was, we will only do the bare minimum to do what suits us. Many of you attended the open house, and just like you, I spent a lot of time asking questions and gathering information. WCC representatives were adamant that they valued us being there, that they had sheets of paper and pens asking us to write our concerns, and that they would get back to each of us because our thoughts were valued. I personally left a list of my concerns, my name, my phone number, and email directly with one of the key WCC representatives who committed to following up, drawing stars next to my key questions. To date, I still have had 0 follow-up from anyone at WCC. What they said is, we value your opinion and understand your concerns. What their actions demonstrated is that we will only follow up if it is important to us or if it aligns with our needs or business strategies. Is this the company that we want making an application? These are minor commitments. These were minor. But it was an opportunity for them to display their character, to show that they actually do or care for the community. the families, the neighbors, and instead what they said versus what they did was easily demonstrated to me that they are not interested in us as individuals. They are a billion-dollar company. The landowner who lives a couple kilometers away is not even on their radar. They will pay the county taxes and royalties, but will do the bare minimum. This is not a company that is concerned about our quality of life. They have no need to. They want to dump their waste, and that is a priority. In this situation, are we to be the sacrifice for the rest of the county? When asking what can you do, the response was talk to your councillor and let them know how you feel. Check. Talk to your MLA's office and just let them know the situation. Check. Talk to the applicant, WCC. Check. Attend the meetings, write a letter, speak at the hearing. Check, check, check. But will following the process be enough? Or will this be an example of utilitarian philosophy? Will the county believe that a vote based on the idea that the morally correct course of action is one that produces benefit for the greatest number of people? Will more income, increased reserves, and tax revenue for the quality of life and inconvenience of a small group of residents be the trade? Looking back over the last several weeks, there is nothing that I have seen, heard, or learned that has convinced me that a vote to amend the bylaw with potential to move forward with a redesignation for proposed direct control for the purpose of a privately operated Class 2 landfill should be moved ahead. I strongly remain opposed.
Next is Mickelson, okay, and following you is Mr. Earl Penner. So, Karen, whenever you're ready.
I just would like to say thank you for letting me speak today. I live within 3 miles of the proposed site, and I've lived there for approximately 36 years. This would be the first time that I have ever had the opportunity to oppose something so strongly, and for the various reasons that have been mentioned previously. But I would like to focus on the ones that should be first and foremost to all of us is the lack of consideration to the environment and moving forward in the necessary ecologically friendly solution to waste management. I think this is far from where we need to be. I think there's so many more, what do I want to say? Feasible solutions, such as John Moore had mentioned, that there are solutions that Switzerland and other countries are using as far as incineration, steam power, that kind of thing. And I just don't feel like this is representative of what our area needs. I see a huge impact to our land values. I am southwest or southeast of the proposed site, so I'm in direct line of northwest winds blowing garbage in my direction, and I know that there are many others in that situation as well. I think there's so many things to be considered here as far as the traffic on the road, waste management, and that kind of thing, which I believe that have mostly been touched on. But thank you, and I do hope that you decide to reject this.
Thank you, Karen. Next speaker on our list is Mr. Earl Penner, and following him is Tara Geddes. So, Tara, if you would please come to the front of the room and be prepared when Mr. Penner is finished. Mr. Penner, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Earl Penner. I'm a farmer in the Sproul area. So we're about 5 miles north of the area proposed. In the past few weeks, our community has received comments by people to the effect that we must have more of a reason to oppose this development other than we just don't want it. I think you've heard a lot of that today. Our belief is that this council needs to explain to the ratepayers of Kneehill County why this landfill is actually going to be beneficial to all of us over the multiple decades going forward. The financial gain that has likely been promised to communities and landowners in our county needs to be compared to the long-term disadvantages, erosion of land values, and environmental damages, both realized and most importantly unrealized damages in the future. This consideration must be made for ourselves, our neighbors, and most importantly, for our children and grandchildren. The citizens of Nehill are an industrious and generous community. We've been able to raise funds for multiple projects of great importance in the past. Please don't allow the glow of additional taxes and the promise of potential funding from these type of businesses cloud your judgment in this decision. We respect our councillors. We appreciate the effort and commitment to each and every one of you have given to our county. We ask you make the right decision in this matter at second reading. Let's not allow this decision be guided by short-term financial gain, but for our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren's safety and well-being in our county for multiple decades to come. We're certain you all know what that decision is. Let's not have this project be this council's legacy. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Ms. Tara Geddes, and following her is Mr. Darcy Penner. So, Mr. Penner, if you would come forward, and Ms. Geddes, I'll turn the floor to you.
My name is Tara Geddes, and my family's land ends about just over a mile south of the proposed landfill. Like I said, my name is Tara Geddes, formerly Tara Byer, daughter of Reg and Shirley Byer. I'm going to tell you a story entailing the legacy and future of my family's 5-generation stewardship of the land that is now being threatened by the appalling thought of turning some of the most productive agricultural land into a garbage dump. First generation, Jacob Byer, immigrated to Canada in 1917, founding what is still the main homestead today at Southeast 362824. This would be my boy's great-great-grandfather. Second generation, Art Byer, born in 1915. He began working the farm at age 8 with a horse-drawn threshing crew, harnessing his craft. He enjoyed the dirty 30s, which only made him more determined and ultimately gave him more satisfaction than came with farming. 1943, Art took over the farm. Third generation, Reg Byer, my father. Born in 1950, he began working alongside his father at a young age, soaking in the knowledge and passion that came from prior generations. This passion and love for the land was instilled to my brother and I from the time we could walk. We were always taught how to care for and respect the land and make it sustainable for future generations to come. Which brings me to my 5th generation, my sons. Following in my forefathers' footsteps, my husband and I have taught our boys, Lane and Jackson, to love and care for the land. It is a privilege to have land, and one that comes with responsibility and respect. We enjoy numerous recreational activities, including quadding, motorbiking, snowmobiling, hiking, sport shooting, bonfires, the list goes on. This part of our property, like I said, is just over a mile from the proposed dump site. This is also the property that has always had my future forever home on it. To have a dream like that kept getting closer and closer, only to discover that it may have garbage flowing through it, as well as the eye-watering methane gases, it's heartbreaking and devastating to say the least. The rolling hills and waving grass will be replaced with garbage. The endless wildlife will be replaced with raccoons, rats, and seagulls. It's turning my long-standing dream into a nightmare. The grass that has been sought after prevailing in pasture land that is in such short supply will no longer be viable, as farmers and ranchers will be afraid of what their livestock will be ingesting. Not to mention all of the toxicity this dump will create, which is guaranteed to affect our health. In conclusion, my friends, my family, residents of Nehill County, and council members, if this was your property, if this was your backyard, if this property held your memories, plus your future, would you vote yes? My hope is no.
Our next speaker is Mr. Darcy Penner, and he'll be followed by Craig Olson. So Craig, if you would come forward, please. And Mr. Penner, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Darcy Penner. I am a lifelong resident of Meadville County. I am here to speak in opposition to the proposed bylaw redesignation and commercial landfill proposal that I am an adjacent landowner to, though our home residence is about 2.5 miles west of the landfill. My wife Judy and I, upon hearing of this proposal and receiving an information package from Needham County, made efforts to engage with Waste Connections Canada representatives in an attempt to get informed about the landfill proposal. Dan Rochette, along with Peter Marshall, spent about 3 hours in our house, generally explaining the process of developing a commercial Class 2 landfill, as well as the day-to-day functioning of such a landfill. They talked about how Waste Connections Canada specifically deals with remediating the impacts with the surrounding area that occur at the Coronation landfill, as well as generally how they would occur at the proposed landfill. Judy and I also traveled to Coronation to see firsthand what the site looked like. While there, we talked to 3 sets of neighbors of the landfill and had a guided tour of the landfill site itself. Mark, the site manager, spent over an hour showing us how it worked and how they dealt with a number of the events that impact the surrounding community. We also attended the open house that Waste Connections had as well. This is what I heard and saw. The neighbors we talked to said the landfill had operated better in the recent past than at any time in its history. They have come to accept its presence, but that doesn't mean they like it or that they are happy that it's there. In the 24 years or more that the site has operated under varying ownership, only in the last few years has it been close to being a good corporate neighbor. There are no guarantees that the company that builds this landfill proposed will be the one operating it 20 years down the road, and no guarantees the same corporate vision will prevail. Yet it will still get permitting renewals and permissions from other levels of government to continue to operate. The Waste Connections Canada representatives that we talk with are generally satisfied, even proud of the efforts that are taken to manage the site of Coronation and their other sites across North America. Yet, they have trash escapes caused by wind events, they have bird issues that they attempt to control, they have events where the smells from the site affect nearby neighbors. Despite Waste Connections' best efforts, these and other issues arise, and they are constantly trying to remediate them. In other words, they are consistently failing to operate a progressive, proactive, community-enhancing facility that does not impact surrounding neighbors. And because they know they will fail, they offer money in the form of community enhancement to the whole Bainbridge County to compensate for the impacts to Coronation and the surrounding area. The amount mentioned to me was a sum approaching $1 million over a 10-year tax span. Put that in context with the village of Acme and surrounding areas. Community groups, some of which I belong to, by working at casinos and fundraisers, have raised well over $1 million in the same time frame for our community. We don't need Waste Connections community enhancement money. Why would we want to burden the next 3 to 4 generations of Needham County residents with a facility that is primarily handling waste from outside our community in essentially the same way civilization has handled waste for 2,000 years? Dig a hole, throw it in. There has to be a better way. That better way is happening in other jurisdictions in the world. Why not here? At our first meeting in our house, General Shed said that Waste Connections Canada doesn't want to be where it's not wanted. I would like to take them at their word. I don't want them to be without.
Thank you.